Today, we'll be speaking to a corporate mogul in the banking and finance sector. He is the controller and the chief accounting officer of Citigroup. Please join me now in welcoming Mr. Johnbull Okpara to the story of becoming. Mr. Okpara, welcome to the story of becoming. How are you? We're so honored to have you on. So you are the Chief Accounting Officer, Controller of Citigroup. And for those who don't know, Citigroup is the third largest banking institution in America. It's one of the big four. You have Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and Citigroup. And so when we look at you and I just think about your journey, I always wonder, and reading just your bio, did you always want to go into the financial industry?
Thank you, Nia. Great question. Actually, Citigroup, we're the most global bank out there. So we're in more countries than any other bank on earth. And great question. Have always wanted to be in banking? No, is the answer. I have a degree in applied chemistry. I actually went to a great university, the University of Jos in Nigeria, where I studied applied chemistry and the goal was to go into the oil industry, oil services. Coming out, I applied to Shell, Chevron, had interviews. But at the time, a company called Arthur Andersen had just come into Nigeria, and they were the place to be, so to speak. A lot of my friends were applying. Those that got in were raving about the place. So piqued my interest, went through tests, interviews, et cetera, and rest is history. I joined Arthur Andersen. Arthur Andersen is an accounting firm, a consulting firm, and I use the word "is" because at some point Arthur Andersen demised because of Enron, and then it's back now. So I started my career with Arthur Andersen with auditing, consulting, worked for all services firms, and a lot has happened in those 28 years, and now I'm in banking. But happy to get into more details, but it wasn't the plan.
It wasn't. That is so interesting. It wasn't the plan. So what was the plan then? Because I feel like as a Nigerian, a proud Nigerian myself, I feel like we were all born knowing what we want to go into. Or somehow the society forces you into a path. So what was the plan for you?
I was, I was the fifth of nine children, large family, not atypical in Nigeria, but pretty large family. And I wanted to be a doctor, and of course,
Of
Nigerian.
course.
But coming out of school, I skipped two levels of one in elementary school, one in high school, and so when I took the entrance examination, I got into applied chemistry. I didn't get into the medical school, and I went straight in. And it was good though because my dad had worked in Shell, so I knew a little bit about the oil industry. So my goal was I'm going to go study applied chemistry. I'm going to work for Shell. That was the goal.
Now, when you look at your life now, and I'm definitely going to go into detail on the positions you've held so far, would you say you are happy and content? Because I feel like once life takes you a path and you continue on that path, it's almost like there's no going back and you start to find happiness in that path. So would you say now, you know what, I am happy, I'm comfortable, I'm confident, this is where I am, let's keep pushing forward. Would that be the same story for you?
I'm extremely pleased. I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful for where I am. I'm living the dreams of my grandparents, of my parents, literally speaking. So I'm really, really happy where, fate is taking me where God has placed me. I think things have turned out really well. And I'm not one to regret, but I think it's really worked out. And by the way, all the twists and turns and all the ups and downs have really been instrumental in getting me to where I am. So, short answer is very, very happy. Long answer is, there's a path that you start out with that you write down. You say, here's where I want to go. But if you're a person of faith like myself, you know that there's a God and things happen, and you just got to keep going.
That's amazing. So you're a person of faith. I'm not even going to go deep into that because I do get excited when I see successful people of faith, and that's really good. I want to kind of touch on growing up a little bit more before we dive back into your professional career. So when you said you took the entrance exam and you got into applied chemistry, was that in Nigeria or in the US?
I was in Nigeria. Like I
In
said,
Nigeria.
I went to one of the best schools in the world, University of Jos. And I like to say that I've got, the school has produced a lot of notable executives, actually. The CEO of Herbalife, which is a Fortune 1000 company, went to University of Jos. And I could, you know, put out a lot of names. So, but yes, that's where I went to school. And, I very proud of having been there. Most people ask me, well, you didn't go to school in the States? No, I did not. But having said that, I got my MBA here in New York University, Stern School of Business. I'm a
Okay.
CPA in Pennsylvania. I'm a CIA in New York. So I've got a lot of learning and qualifications from the States as well.
Where did you live in Nigeria? Imo State, the southeastern part, Lagos, where? Let's start with that. I think that's going to be very interesting to
Yeah.
hear and explore.
So like I said, I was a fifth of 9 children. I was born in Imo State. So the eastern part of Nigeria. I was raised in the eastern part of Nigeria. Went to a school, Holy Ghost College in Owerri is where I went to my school.
Okay.
You chuckle, you probably know something about the school. But I was very scholarly. Library prefect was always around books. Everyone who know me knew me around books. I studied quite a lot, and graduated, went straight to Jos, which was in the north. Now my parents had lived in the north, and I had my grandmother living in Kaduna, my
Okay.
aunt, my brothers, etc. So it was easy for me to go to Jos because I had a home in Kaduna, which was like 3 hours from Jos. So I had a second home in Kaduna where I spent most of the holidays while going to Jos. And when I graduated, where do everyone go? You go to Lagos, and that's where I went. I mentioned Arthur Anderson, but before that, actually, I don't know if you know, but in Nigeria, you have to do a national youth service, and I did it
Yes.
in
Yes.
Kano. I was in Kano, and it was one of the best of my youth experiences. Living in Kano by myself, having an apartment, getting salary. I was a graduate assistant at the university, Bayero University in Kano. It was great. I had a blast, friends, everything. But that was a year, and then moved to Lagos after that, and then joined Arthur Anderson shortly thereafter. I had a great time in Lagos working for Arthur Anderson for about 2.5, 3 years. Joined an all services company as the controller, and
Wow. Okay.
yeah, in Lagos. It was an all services company based in New Orleans, and worked for them a little bit in Lagos. And then my wife and I decided, we were dating at the time. She decided she was going to come to New York for graduate school. We weren't married at the time, we was just dating. And we came to New York and helped her set up in New York because she had been admitted to Columbia University for graduate
Okay.
school. Helped her set up, do everything. And I was flying to New Orleans where my company was headquartered. And the company offered me a role in New Orleans. So I was going to move from Lagos to New Orleans. And on our way to the airport, my wife convinced me to quit the job and stay in New York. And that's
Wow.
how my story of becoming a New Yorker started.
That's very interesting. You talked about how you've always been an avid reader, you've always been around books. And then just looking at your path right now and the trajectory of your life, and you now becoming the chief accounting officer, I personally believe that a person who reads books, who has that skill and ability to sit and just focus on a book, builds a unique type of skill set. And so would you say that's contributed to how you function, how you operate, and just, built this unique level of, I want to say, professionalism, but also the ability to just kind of push through and to become where you are right now.
Yeah, you're right. I think, my growing up, my mom, she owned a big restaurant, and
Okay.
she got up at 5 a.m., went to, close shop at midnight. So we all worked around that restaurant, right? If you're not in school, you're working. So we learned work ethic. And my escape from doing work at the restaurant was reading. If I said I had a book to read, my mom said, okay, you're excused. So I learned early to escape the chores of, serving guests or washing dishes or doing whatever by reading. So if I was reading, I was excused. And so I kind of found escape in reading because I didn't want to do the work. My dad owned the business center, et cetera. I helped there as well. So you had books and things displayed there and newspapers delivered. So I try to read all that all day. So reading kind of was something that came out of me, partly wanting to escape household chores and helping out in the restaurant, but also there were books and materials around me. I remember growing up, people would bring, if someone wanted to give me a gift, they'd bring a book. They knew me really well. They'll buy me a book. So I read a lot of books, and that's helped me a lot because in what I do, I mentioned Citigroup is the most global bank out there. We've got operations in
Exactly.
90 countries, and I do a fair amount of reading. Reading financial reports, reading analyst reports, reading memos, etc. So it's really been helpful in my career, but it's something that is now part of me. Uh, and I can't go a day without reading anything. So
That's
it's
good.
great. It's one of my
It's
hobbies.
great. And it's helped a lot. And when we hear accounting, of course, everyone just thinks about numbers, right? But then think about how you started. It seemed as if you just weren't a numbers guy, and now suddenly you're in numbers. What has that been for you? Do you now like numbers? Did you hate it initially, and now you're like, you know what, I love it, and the reading has helped a little bit?
I like numbers with a dollar sign in front of them. Um,
Of course.
but growing up in the restaurant, my mom's story, I like to be the one collecting the money and doing the accounting. So it
Okay.
was easier work. You know, I think it was Bill Gates that said, if you want something done, get a lazy person. It would do it fast. If you
Oh.
want something done fast, get someone who's lazy because they'll find a quick way to
Oh.
do it. So
Yes.
I, you know, I kind of like numbers, just again by practice, but you know, it just goes hand in hand. And by the way, having studied applied chemistry, you have to be quantitative to do well in chemistry. So there's a math aspect to my undergraduate studies as well. So it all comes together.
Absolutely. So you talk about your mom a lot, and being a Nigerian myself, I know our parents play a huge role in us growing up and who we become. So would you say your parents as well have played a huge role in impacting your life and who you have now become?
Big time. I think, I talk about my mom because her work ethic is incredible. She's here in the States and she can't be steady. She takes a walk every morning, etc. But yeah, I always say that kids learn not from what you say, but what they see. Okay. So,
Exactly.
if I tell you I haven't learned from my parents, having been around them for that long, I'll be lying. So my mom, just her work ethic. My dad, his kindness, just a man of peace. He never had trouble with anyone. He would walk away from anything, any confrontation. So you have both sides. That really is it's helping.
That's really great. Now let's dive into your professional background even more. So you succeeded Jeff Walsh in your current position as a chief accounting officer, controller for Citigroup, and prior to that, you worked for Morgan Stanley. And
That's
prior
right.
to Morgan Stanley, you worked at Capital One. When I hear all of this and I just look at you and I just think about your trajectory, it's very impressive to say the least. And I'm sure a lot of people have said this to you. But then again, when I think even deeper about being a Black Nigerian man in America, I can't help but think about all of the prejudice and the challenges you must have gone through. Can you share some of your experiences in that regard? Some maybe and I don't want to just say, but flat out racism, challenges, struggle, being a black man, being a Nigerian man who wasn't even born here, right, but grew up in Nigeria, has a Nigeria mentality, an Igbo man mentality, for lack of better words, yeah, and move here to now be in a top position, a senior level executive position for a big financial institution. That's just remarkable. What has been your experiences?
I think I'll just be real.
Okay.
It's a multitude of things, but it comes down to what do you do best? Maximize your strengths. What are you really good
Okay.
at? Right? Just maximize, find your strength and maximize it, right? That's number one. And don't focus on your weaknesses. Let's just maximize what you do really well. I have, work ethic that, most people can't match, and you got to work hard. I call myself a learning machine. I like to learn new things and learn about things and people. So I get into new things and, get up that learning curve very quickly. So that's number two. But a very important part of really being successful in corporate America, no
Okay.
matter where you come from, but more importantly, if you're an immigrant, is, you know, two things. One is you got to focus on results that matter, right? So if whatever you do, right, you got to understand what are the objectives, what are the expected outcomes of your stakeholders, what are they really wanting to get out of bringing you in, and just focus on it. Just drive results for them, whether it's your customers, your employees, your board of directors, your leadership. Drive results and results that matter. What matters to them? Very important. And the second thing is relationships. You cannot underestimate the importance of relationships. You just got to get to know people beyond the transactional level of day to day, hour
Okay.
to hour work. Get to know people, let them get to know you. And if you have those two, you make progress. Now, there's prejudice, there's unconscious bias, there are issues,
Yes. Yes.
every day, every day. But you know what I've learned? Don't take anything personal because,
Okay.
if you take it personal, you're just going to be in a sad state for a lot of times. And so I've learned not to take things personal and just be very objective about them and logical about them and really detach from things. And I could tell you hundreds of experiences that I've had in the corporate setting where I've been, people have treated me, like I wouldn't want to be treated, right? And I've taken
Okay.
it, but you just try not to take it personal and you focus on the objectives and you keep going.
That's very, very well said. So maybe give us one example, if you don't mind sharing. It doesn't have to be now at this level. It could be when you were just starting out. One example of an experience you had where you did not, take it personal. You rose above it all, and you just kept moving forward.
Yeah. So I joined a company, one of the companies I worked for. I was the leader of the division,
Okay.
and I went into the pantry area, and I met a young man, and I said, "How you doing?" He said, "How you doing?" I said, "So what area do you work in? You're on this floor." It was my first week, and he said he works in XYZ area, and he said, "What area do you work in?" I said, "Oh, I work in this area, and my name is Johnbull Okpara." He said, "Oh, great." And then we started talking, and then he goes, "So you work for the new head of that division?" Well, I'm the head of that division. And two, I was just announced. There was a memo that came out to the entire organization. So he
Of
must have seen it,
course.
but he didn't connect it because he's looking at me, and in his mind, it's not this person. So just a minor example of, he's like, "Oh, so you work for this person who just got announced. Have you met him?" I said, "Yeah, I meet him every day," and I walked away. Um, and there was a big town hall a week later, and I was on stage, and I looked across, I could see him. It was a big hall, but for some reason, I just spotted him, and I just started looking him in the eye when I was speaking, and he was very nervous. Now, after the town hall, I went to him and we shook hands, and he was very nervous. And I told him, I said, "Listen, don't worry about it, right? We all
Wow.
make mistakes, not a big deal." He ended up working for me, over the years, and we had a good relationship. but it's so important not to take things personal. And
Personal,
that's my
yes.
biggest advice to a lot of young Black and young immigrant professionals. It's people come to me, I coach and mentor a lot of folks, and they say, well,
Okay.
so and so did that to me, and I said, I could see it, but you got to detach from it and say, what did they do to the process? What did they do
Okay.
to the company? What did they do to the function? It's hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying something here that is easy. It takes
Exactly.
it takes practice, but you got to start by believing that that's the direction you got to go.
And it's so funny you say this because I can say and I can testify to the fact that there are so many young Black men, and not just, of course, Nigerian, just immigrants across the board, who would say and who would counter what you're saying and say that no, you can be very result driven. You can be not take things too personal. You can be very professional. You can always focus on the positive side, but yet just being a Black person, just having this color of skin, just makes people see you a certain way, disrespect you, make you face all of this prejudice. What would you say to those kinds of people? How should they start shifting their mind and perspective?
Yeah, I think the paradigm shift that is needed is you gotta like the relationship side of things is so important. Okay, I live in a community here. There's a golf course behind my house where
Okay.
this an executive at the firm that I was at Morgan Stanley. When I moved to this town, he said, "Wow, they're not going to let you into the golf course." And I
Oh,
said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're Black." And he's a good friend, so he's Jewish. He said they didn't let me in the golf course. They wouldn't let you in the club. And okay, great. But I go there, right? And I told him, I joked to him, I said, I have more charm than you. That's why I can get in that. But the reality is, you build relationships with people that don't look like you, don't act like you, right? And it's hard. I'm not saying anything here that is a walk in the park here, but it's hard. But you got
it
to build
is.
relationships with people that hold the power. That's it. That's in my opinion. If they hold the power, you get to know them. You build a relationship, and when you build a relationship with people, you'll be amazed. They will trust you because they know you've gone out to lunch with them, you had drinks with them, you play golf with them, you play tennis with them, you've been to a concert with. You just find things you have in common. There's always something you have in common with someone, and then you tap
Yes.
into that, and then you build a relationship. Now you have the power, right? Because now they don't want to offend you. Now they listen to what you have to say. Now you're in the room. And it takes work and patience, but I'm telling you, it's very strategic. You got to get there. So that's me. It's building relationships. That's to me
Okay.
the bottom line. Yeah.
That's great. So now let's talk about your name,
Oh my
Johnbull
goodness.
Okpara.
You didn't have to go there, right?
I had to go there. And I'm sure it's very difficult for a lot of people to pronounce in corporate America, right? I'm sure they've butchered it. How do you take all of that? Are you angry? Do you correct them? Because me, I try so hard to make sure that that Nigerian pronunciation is there when I pronounce my name. That tone and everything is just perfect. So how do you handle all of those?
That's such a great question, Nia. That's a fantastic question because my daughter, her college essay was on her name. She wrote, her name is
Oh,
Chidinma. Her name is Chidinma, and her college essay was "What's in My Name?" And
oh,
yeah, because she had a story where in her high school, her one of her teachers mispronounced her name and moved on, and so it's not a big deal. And she said, "No, it's a big deal. You have to pronounce
oh.
it the right way." And so she wrote a paper in her name, and so it's so important. Now, I'm actually more, in terms of the name, Johnbull is easier to pronounce than Okpara, right? And
Yes,
so I happen
yes.
to pronounce it as Okpara, Okpata. All kinds. I could go on and on. It would be a comedy if I start to rattle off all the pronunciations of
I'm
my
already
name.
laughing.
But like I said, I don't take it personal. That's where I go with it, right? Because what I do is, if someone pronounces my name, I know they don't know how to pronounce it, or they're ignorant. They're not trying to learn it. They're not putting the effort to really pronounce it. I get it, but I try not to take it personal. But then I try to give them the benefit of the doubt and give them the correction and say, listen, here's how you pronounce it. But like you, I'm very particular about it. but I don't let
Exactly.
it. I don't let it affect me or my relationships. I just
Okay.
with the tools and I move on. But the Johnbull part is easy to pronounce. Is the Okpara.
Of course. Of
But
course.
yep.
No, you have two semi-complicated names from a Nigerian perspective. I mean, you don't hear a lot of Nigerians go by John Bull. And then you have Okpara. But then what you said about your daughter is just really exemplary. And Chidimma means, God is good. And that's a
Yep.
very, very powerful, powerful name.
Right.
We're going to slowly wrap up, Mr. Okpara. And I just want to ask, as I've said to you earlier, what advice would you give to young Nigerians who want to be in your shoes? There are so many young Nigerians right now who are inserting themselves and infiltrating the financial industry. But it's so hard. It's so hard to even get into the Nigerian financial industry, how much more here in the US. So what is one key advice you would give to them? Maybe something that has really helped you, aside from all the beautiful details and things you've mentioned earlier. What is one key thing that you would say to young Nigerian professionals who want to be like you?
I would say, I talk about working hard. Talk about focus on results that matter. I talked about relationships. But
Yes.
I would say, you got to be persistent. You got to stick with it. I've seen a lot of Nigerians that they kind of go with the flow. Something is hard. They get into a field and it gets challenging and they move into something else and then it gets challenging. They move into something else. Or they get into something is a trend. They move into that trend. Just
Exactly.
stick with it. Stick with it. You're not gonna make it overnight. Um, the success that you see now, it's a lot of work that happened over the years, and so just
Exactly.
stay with it, work at it, get better, learn, because whatever you do, whatever field it is, if it's in corporate, just learn to be the best you can be. There's a lot of things you can learn and just be a learning machine. Learn as much as you can. When I say learn, I'm not talking about hard learning, like the technical details only. It's the soft things as well, right?
Okay.
Emotional intelligence, how to interact, presentation skills, communication skill, all the things that you see, the folks that have succeeded, all the things you see them do well, just figure out how to learn those things and practice those things. When I go to board meetings, I look around, if a chairman and CEO is speaking, I listen to them, how they do it. What are they doing really well? If I go to a conference and I see a great speaker, I pick up what they've done really well. And so be a
Exactly.
learning machine, but stay with it. Just stay with it. Because that second you want to give up might be the second that it's about to turn for you.
Very, very well said. Very powerful words, and thank you for sharing. So now, what about Nigerians in Nigeria? We know how Nigeria is structured and set up right now. A lot of youth in Nigeria want to come here to the Western world to further education, just get a better life overall. And I feel like this advice is great, and it's specific to everyone. Anyone can use this advice, but I think people in Nigeria specifically need to hear from you and what you have to say to them. We do have a broad Nigerian audience in Nigeria, so
Okay.
especially with the leadership crisis and economic crisis in Nigeria, job crisis, what would you say to Nigerians in Nigeria?
I would say my biggest thing is it's hard to give up because there's a good number of players that don't play by the rules, and there are players that play by the rules. But I would say keep your integrity because if I keep my integrity and I do it the right way, and then the next guy does it the right way, and the next lady does it the right way, and the next woman does it, then you're going to see the network effect where collectively we start to have rule of law, we start to have compliance, we start to have things happen the way they're supposed to happen. So in your lane, just do it the right way. If you're a consultant, invoice the amount that you did work for. Don't over invoice. I'm not saying I know anyone who's done that, but just stay and play by the rules. Do it in your lane. If you're doing it in your lane, your friend is going to do it in their lane. And that's how you start the cascade of that integrity. Because I got to tell you, the biggest issue we have with foreign investment coming into Nigeria, folks coming into Nigeria to do businesses, it's that integrity. Okay. And, I have a lot of friends in Nigeria, some in politics, some in business. And, folks move back from here to Nigeria. And what I tell them is do not regress to the mean. Just if your standard is here, keep your standard. And so that's my encouragement to the young folks in Nigeria. Just stay in your lane. And the same advice, stick with it. Be patient. If you're in transportation and you have a fleet of cars, well, just keep going. Just keep going. If you want to get to 100 cars, 200 Uber cars that is in your fleet, keep doing it. And don't look left and right and say, oh, that person is drilling oil or they're doing something else. Stay in your lane and be the best you can be in your lane and keep your integrity. That's my advice.
Very wise words. Thank you so much, Mr. Okpara. This interview to me is literally a masterclass. You've just there's so many takeaways from you. So many things to learn from you. You definitely do have that experience, and I know that a lot of youth, a lot of young people across the board are going to learn so much from you. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story of becoming with us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You do a great job. Keep it going.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching today's episode of The Story of Becoming with Mr. Johnbull Okpara. So many takeaways from this interview, and I hope that everyone watching can learn something from it and be inspired by his story. As always, I'm honored and excited to be your host. My name is Nia Black Studios, and stay tuned for next time on The Story of Becoming.